Good evening and welcome to the first Cutillo Park community meeting. My name is Lauren Bryant and I'm the project manager for this project for Boston Parks. Before we jump into the presentation, I'd just like to go over a few how-tos and what to expect. Could we get the next slide, please? Interpretation wasn't requested for this meeting, so this meeting will be in English. However, for future meetings, please know that we're eager to hear all voices and are able to offer translation and interpretation in additional languages. So please feel free to reach out to me for more information about that at lauren.bryant@boston.gov. Next slide, please. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and will be available on the project website within about a week, and we'll make sure you guys have the link to that website. We wanted to acknowledge all of those who are able to make it tonight. We know that it's not always the easiest to make it to these meetings. However, we also understand that there might be friends and neighbors who weren't able to make this. So please share what you learned tonight with your neighbors and friends, and you can direct them to our website for the recorded meeting. We want to make sure that this conversation feels accessible to everyone and each of you feels comfortable sharing your questions and comments. Please be respectful and mindful of others' time so that everyone has the opportunity to participate. Once you've submitted a question or asked a question, please wait till others have had an opportunity to ask questions before submitting another one. You can always follow up with me with another conversation offline if you'd like to as well. We'd like to hear your thoughts, and that's why we're here tonight. And there are several ways you can engage with us. We know there's a lot of information to share, and we want to get your feedback on all of it. We'll be doing a short presentation, and we'll have an open discussion at the end. If you have a question that pops into your head before we get to that point, please feel free to add it to the chat, and we'll make sure we answer it during the discussion time. And please only use the chat for questions or comments related to the project. Hopefully that takes care of housekeeping information. We could jump to the agenda slide. Now onto the agenda and the project. First of all, again, I want to thank all of you guys for your time tonight. We know it's hard to make time for community meetings and that everyone is feeling a lot of Zoom fatigue. It certainly goes to show how important this park is and how much it means to the community that we have so many people that came to the meeting tonight. First, we'll introduce our design team, then we'll do a quick project overview and go into our presentation on existing conditions for the park. And then, like I said before, we'll have time for a discussion at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. My name is Lauren Bryant, as I said earlier, and I'm the project manager for Boston Parks for this exciting project in park renovation, along with several other projects throughout the city. I'm also joined tonight on the city end by Christine Brandeo, who is our outreach coordinator for Boston Parks. I'm also going to introduce our design team from Stantec, and maybe each of you guys could both give a little wave when I say your name and then introduce yourself as you speak during the presentation. We have Kevin Butel from Stantec and Jess Schoendorf with us tonight. We also, I also wanted to acknowledge that Councillor Edwards' office has representation here tonight as well. And also John Romano from Office of Neighborhood Services is also here with us tonight. So thank you both for being here. And we're excited that you're joining us. So just a project overview. A lot of you know that the park was established in 1917. And since then, the playground has gone through several renovations over time, most recently in 2009. Once the design and construction for this project is complete, our maintenance team takes over until the next renovation. So if there are any things outside of the design and construction project that you guys have questions about, 311 is a really great way to interact with the city for those. And we also wanted to acknowledge that we have a really wonderful friends group for this park, and they've been working with the park throughout the recent history and continuing through the project and the future. Also wanted to talk about this project specifically. So just so that everybody knows, this project is kicking off tonight. This is our first meeting. The park and the project that we're talking about is the park itself. It's the court, the playground, and the passive areas at Cutillo. We do know and recognize that there is an adjacent boutique hotel project that is happening adjacent to the park, and that is not what this project is about. This is wholly separate from that, and is funded through the city and is a project that's happening, although we do know of that adjacent project. So we want to let you know again, this is the very first community meeting. At this meeting tonight, we're going to talk about the park and the scope of this project. We're going to get a sense of what you guys think works and doesn't work, what you feel is important to save and what needs upgrading and changing. We'll have a second community meeting in April of this year on April 13th. At that meeting, we're going to be looking at several concepts and design ideas for what this park can be. We will then have a third community meeting in May. And at that meeting, we will look at what the final design is. We'll take into consideration everything we've heard at these first two meetings and show it to you and ask, did we get it right? Did we hear you? Is this what you guys are hoping for the future of Cutillo Park? After that, our design team will be putting together construction drawings, and we're hoping to bid this project summer or fall of this year with a fall construction and hopefully a summer 2022 construction or project reopening. The estimated construction cost is $1.29 million. And we can talk a little bit as we go through what some of those, what some of these scope ideas are that we're going to talk through. Next slide. So we want to just let everybody know that there are a lot of considerations guiding public park design, which includes community input, such as tonight, safety and regulatory guidelines, such as ADA, City of Boston priorities, and parks and recreation goals. During the project planning, we prioritize expanding park access, addressing equity and climate resiliency, promoting public health, and building strong communities. We also prioritize park-specific goals, which overlap with the city priorities and include the creation of parks which are accessible and available to all, provide diverse and balanced programming, promote meaningful and inclusive community engagement, create adaptive and resilient landscapes, and promote connection within the neighborhood and the broader park system. So with that, and giving you that overview, I'm going to stop talking now and turn it over to Kevin Butel from our design team.
Thank you, Lauren. As Lauren said, I'm leading the design effort for the project. We're really excited to be working on the project and to be speaking with you tonight to hear your preliminary thoughts for what direction you'd like us to take the park in. You can see here, for those of you who aren't already familiar, where Cutillo Playground is located in the north end here at the bottom of the slide. This is the condition today aerial photograph of Cutillo, but we thought it might be interesting to show you some of the historic plans of the park and how it's changed over the years. So the earliest plan we found of the park was from 1917, and you can see that it took up a little bit more space than it does today. And we did find some photos, courtesy of the Friends of Cutillo Park, some historic photos that we thought were really interesting. Kids in the playground shortly after it was constructed. And another photo here. So you can see how the park was a little bit larger at the time, and a big open space with trees located around the perimeter, and a lot of the same buildings adjacent to the park that are still there today. Then in 1953, there were some substantial changes. The park shrunk a little bit, and then they added in something called a coasting path down in the lower right. So it must have been something for bikes or some sort of like wheel or sledding hill that they added into the park, but the rest of it was hardscape. And then in 1972, about 50 years ago, you can see the park, and it's pretty much in the same configuration that it is today, with full-size basketball court over on the left side, and then playground equipment on the right side of the park. So it was interesting to us that at least the general content programming of the park really hasn't changed substantially for about 50 years. And then we have a couple of more recent plans with some updates that were made to the park, but again, no major changes. And then again, here it is today. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of the existing conditions and what we saw at the park when we've been out there. So as many of you already know, access to the park is on very narrow streets, Stillman Street and Morton Street. And then as Lauren mentioned before, there are plans to put a new hotel adjacent to the park. And I don't know, Lauren, if you wanted to say more about the status of where that hotel development is at.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And just to clarify again for everyone, especially if somebody joined in a little bit late, we're acknowledging that there is a proposed project for this future boutique hotel. However, it is separate from the city. It's not a city project, and it certainly isn't a Boston Parks project. We're just making sure that as we're talking about the future of the park, that we're being cognizant of things that are potentially happening surrounding the park. As far as we know, the project for the boutique hotel has submitted to BPDA. They have submitted their project notification form to the BPDA. And our understanding from the BPDA website, which I'm also going to put a link to the website for that project into the chat for people who are interested. My understanding is that they are currently in a comment period for that project. And so you can see that that comment section in the website that I'm going to put into the chat. So again, just to clarify, it's not part of this project and it's not something that we're discussing tonight. Tonight is really about the actual park itself, which is a City of Boston capital funded project.
Thanks, Lauren. So access to the park today, you can see the yellow lines here, again, on those adjacent narrow streets that I was talking about. And then the circles show the locations of the entrance points into the park. And then the current plans for the hotel, they do include a pedestrian connection, a walk through the hotel building that could provide access, another access point to the park, which potentially could be a nice benefit to make the park a little bit more accessible and visible than it is today. And like Lauren said, so we're going to be taking those sorts of things into consideration when we're designing the park and thinking about the potential changes we can make. So you can see here, there's a single entrance off of Morton Street. Another photo of that same entrance here. Relatively narrow, could use some accessibility improvements. On Stillman Street, there are 3 entrances into the park. The main entrance that was redone relatively recently is an accessible entrance into the park. And then here on the left and right images are the other 2 more narrow, smaller entrances into the park. The area of the park is just over 12,000 square feet. And the program space within the park, the basketball court and the play equipment, takes up about 60% of the area of the park. You can see here, basketball court, some of the play equipment, some drainage issues, and then the small swing set that's also out there today. There's also more unprogrammed space within the park, about 40% of the park, with trees, seating, so number of trees in the park. And so we're really going to make every effort we possibly can to save all of these trees that are in the park, and hopefully, add some more green space as well, if we can. Existing benches, some of the trees here. So these are ginkgo trees, and you'll notice the tree that's at the upper right of the image. It's actually a female ginkgo tree that drops fruit, which can get rather smelly kind of in late summer and fall. So that is one tree that we've been discussing potentially replacing with another one that won't create the mess that the one that's out there today does. Then we got this area here with benches, planters, and then some painting for Foursquare and other activities on the hardtop in the park. So when we're thinking about the possible changes we could make to the park, it's always helpful to take a step back and look at what some of the other park resources and activities are kind of in the general neighborhood. So that's what this is looking at. So you can see Cutillo Playgrounds at the lower part of the image, and there's an approximate 5-minute walk circle from the park. And so what we were doing is looking at not just Boston Park properties, but really any open space properties in the North End, looking at which ones had dog parks, basketball courts, and playgrounds, and looking at, for those playgrounds, were they geared more towards younger children or older children? So, just we're very interested to hear, like Lauren was saying, what your thoughts are of what we can do to make improvements to the park, but maybe some ideas to start get you thinking about those sorts of changes we could make. In the upper left, for the basketball court, there are things we can do with the court surfacing and the painting that makes it a more flexible space. So we can obviously keep it for its use as a basketball court, but we can add in other lines. We could potentially have lines for other sports, soccer. Admittedly, it would be on hardtop, but there are some things we could look at there. Or we could look at painting, maybe a loop trail around the perimeter of it. So if little kids are learning to ride a bike or wanted to take their tricycle out there, as long as the courts aren't being used for basketball, that would help communicate that it could be used for lots of other things as well. And we can look at activating the ground surface with paint in other areas of the park as well. Something where kids could use it as an informal chalkboard or other kind of creative fun patterns to activate the space, make it a little bit more playful and fun. Because the park is, in some ways kind of a courtyard between buildings, we're also thinking about how can we, make use of those walls as an asset. So there's a mural out there today, which is great. We could look at adding additional murals. We could look at doing other things with the building surface, obviously working with the property owners to make sure that they're on board with any of those sorts of changes. And then in terms of looking at kind of using vertical surfaces, not something that we'd be looking to do on the exterior of the buildings, but there might be an opportunity to include climbing walls within the park. We're also thinking, not only about preserving the trees that are there, but also, like I was saying earlier, how can we increase green space within the park? So if we create spaces for basketball playgrounds, if there are leftover spaces, how do we want to use those spaces? Do we want to create them to create more of a green environment, more lush plantings, potentially around the perimeter and some of the other areas of the park? And then, trying to balance the needs of protecting the trees that are out there today, but also providing as much usable space within the park. This image on the left, we thought might have some possibilities where we could look at some elevated surfaces and deckings that would protect the tree roots, potentially significantly expand the ability of those tree roots to grow and allow those trees to live longer and be healthier, but also allow spaces for people to sit or congregate. And then we're looking at play equipment too. So we could look at more kind of standard conventional play equipment geared for younger or older children. But I think given the small size of the park, we could also look at maybe a little bit of a different kind of solutions for play within the park. Because we don't have a whole lot of area to work with, we could look at play systems that really build more vertically, build up rather than out. And we could look at things that were more sculptural. So something that's fun to play on, but that also something that's attractive to look at for people that are stopping by the park. It might be interesting to introduce some sort of water feature into the park. And because Boston doesn't have a very long, hot summer season, we'd like to make sure that those spaces are also usable at the other times of the year when the water wouldn't be running. So there are things that we could look at of different sorts of water features that could have fun, water interactive elements. But then, like I was saying, when those features are turned off for the majority of the year, they could be some kind of seating or climbing feature within the park. And there are lots of different ways we could do that. So, in the upper left image, we've got a little bit more of kind of a clean, simpler, modern take on the design. But the image on the right, it could be a little bit more of a rustic, kind of more naturalistic kind of water system where kids could play with water and have that water run over natural stones and runnels and those sorts of things. So that we'd like to turn it over to all of you and hear what you have to say.
And I think if we could, Christine, you were telling me that we needed to have people raise their hand in order to be unmuted. So if any of you don't know where that is in the participants panel, that you can click on the bottom of your screen. There are ways there where you can raise your hand in that participant box. Oh,
we have one raised hand.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you, Christine.
Mary, you can unmute yourself now.
Hi there, my name is Mary Beth. I am in Butter. I live with a view on to Morton Street. But first, thank you so much for your time and appreciate it. Already sounds like you've put so much work into our little local playground, which so many of us love. So I am a daily user of the park. I actually don't have any children, but I have a dog, and given that of my location being on Stillman, in between Stillman and Morton, I'm there frequently. When my windows are open, I could hear the basketball playing, and and I'm also a member of Friends of Cutillo Park. I've seen a lot of the great, just the mural alone that went up. I've noticed a great improvement of, particularly I think a lot of us on the call will be able to share our experience with drug use in the park. That has been a really big concern. I know I personally have called 911 multiple times or have just reported needles in the park, and certainly a big concern. So, small steps like adding the mural, I noticed a very quick improvement to the space. So we're really excited about, moving forward with other ideas. So I was the one that just had flagged the potential boutique hotel that I know several of us are voicing our thoughts on it. And a big concern that we have is the potential lack of light on the park and how that will impact, all of our usage of the space, and to be able to stand on the basketball court and see the lovely view of the clock tower and the city skyline. That's something that many of us are very concerned about, light flow and just the fact that there'll be a potential wall there. So my hope is in your planning that you're keeping that in mind, that there potentially will not be a 5-floor hotel there, that it could remain a 1-story commercial. So just a request there. But the other comments I was just hoping to bring about was there, unfortunately, I think we would love to see a lot more children using the playground. So any kind of features, I think that would be great to make it more appealing and maybe a little bit, less scary for families to bring their little ones to play, and so they don't come across potential needles or potential just folks that potentially are, intimidating in the space. But one thing that I know I've noticed in going to the Rough Dog Park on Prince Street is that I notice first thing in the morning, I know I like going to that space because I see people working out. First thing in the morning, you know, as the sun rises, there are adults working out. So I was wondering if that could potentially be something to think about, you know, just a small zone that might bring folks there, the early birds or people throughout the day who might be working out in the space. I just think it might to, you know, help with keeping the space being used. I think that's a neighborhood goal for us, is to make sure that people are in the space and it's getting a lot of use. So I wanted to make that suggestion. And then lastly, rats. The space has a lot of rats. There's a lot of holes in the foundation. So I know that that's likely something that would be addressed, I'm sure, with any kind of potential construction in the space. But those are my 2 ideas.
Thank you, Mary. That's great. And in terms of the hotel, like I was saying, it's definitely not part of this project, but especially considering the adjacencies, knowing that what comments are from the community will be, I'll be happy to pass those along to those in the Parks Department who are working with the PDA on this project to make sure that they know what we heard tonight. So I appreciate you thinking about those adjacencies from the park.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I know that several people in the chat were saying that they couldn't find where to raise their hand. So don't worry, we will get to all of you. So let me look through. I think Lorraine Foley wanted to say something. Christine, could we unmute her, please?
Yes, give me 1 second to find her.
Thank you.
And if you click, if anyone can't find it, if you press where it says reactions, it should give you the button to press raise hand. And you said Lorraine Foley?
Lorraine, yes, Lorraine.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
This was a great presentation, what you have showed us, and what will happen with the park is wonderful. I'm just sort of going to reiterate a little bit, and I think what you need to realize, we met with the contractor, the person who's planning to build the, actually it's 6 stories, not 5, because going on site further to get the Article 24 removed or changed, is actually considered, they put in there as a 6-story 6-story hotel, greater than 135 or about 135 rooms, which does not make it a boutique hotel. But what you have projected, what you foresee is beautiful. You want children to be there, just everything that is involved. What I'm concerned about, and again, is I'm going to talk about the hotel, unfortunately, and if you can bring this back. Number 1, again, it's 6 stories. 2, you're asking, you're building for children. That pathway is only going to bring adults through there because it's coming from the city. What you want is a community from the North End, people that have children, to come to that park. It's going to bring a lot more strangers in, which is going to be difficult. The second part is you now have a 6-story hotel with all the trash. We already have a problem with the rats. The other concern is Morton Street. Right now, no one goes down Morton Street. It's basically, a walkway if anyone's going to walk through it, correct? Now you're going to have a hotel. Where are they going to put the trash? There's going to be more deliveries back there. I'm not exactly sure where they're going to have the deliveries done. And the other thing is the builder wanted to demolish all the existing trees. When we met with him, that's what he said. He says, well, the park needs to be re-renovated. The trees are no good. So in his mind, it's a lot different. So I'm just concerned, and I think as for you as the park department, and I know that you're separate from what's going on with the hotel, I think it's important maybe that you need to bring this forward, because I don't think what you have projected and where you foresee this park being will happen if the hotel goes up. Thank
Thank
you.
you. And I know that I know that there are a lot of people that have a lot of thoughts about the hotel. But I do also, and I appreciate the concerns that you've brought up, but I do also want to make sure that we're able to talk through what the community wants out of this park and out of this project. So I want to make sure that I know that the hotel is is something that is important for people to feel like they're able to talk to the city about. And I know that the BPDA process of comments is a really good way to do that. So I can put that website in the chat again. But I also want to make sure that we have a chance to talk about people's thoughts with the playground itself, since that's what we have control over with this project. So I would definitely love to hear from some folks about types of play, ages of kids that use the park. Is it mainly younger children? Is it older children? Is it a mixture of both? Is basketball heavily used? What do people think about the passive areas? Do they like that there's hardscape that can be programmed? Would they like to see more soft natural areas? So I think we'd love to hear some of that feedback too.
Kristen has her hand up.
But it seems like
Hi. Hi, this is Kirsten Hoffman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, so I'm Kirsten Hoffman, president of Friends of Cutillo Park. And I'm actually impressed by some of the design options you guys are throwing out there. I think you're on the right track with respect to preserving the trees. I think one thing that's important is to kind of take into account use patterns in the park, and I know you'll get that feedback from the neighborhood. But you think you'll notice that where the benches are placed and the fact that there is so much fencing in the park kind of deters people from having their children use some of the playground equipment there. So I think not just what's needed isn't just kind of a redesign and upgrade of the existing equipment that's in the park, but instead kind of a rethinking of the uses that would happen there. And also, the proposed adjacent development. Hopefully the Parks Department will comment on that in the course of that comment period before the BPDA, and hopefully you'll comment taking into account some of the feedback you hear from the community. But I think if there is a development there, I think there are probably elements of that development that could contribute to the park, but I think they have to be very carefully thought out. I know we don't want to go into a lot of that right now, but I guess my one question is, can you clarify for everybody what kind of feedback in what form you're looking for before the next meeting? Is there a deadline? Is there a place for people to leave comments?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. And to address what you had asked earlier about the Parks Department's involvement. So even though it's not our project, our chief landscape architect is involved with the BPDA in conversations. And what I do here will go to her so that she has that information when she's collaborating with the BPDA. So please know that even though this isn't about that project, that anything that I do here, I'll make sure goes to the people in the Parks Department who are directly working with the BPDA on it. And then to answer the question about what kind of feedback, well, first we'd like feedback tonight in terms of what people think about the future of the park. And those were just ideas that are thrown out there. There hasn't been any design yet because we really want to hear from the community about what they want to see and what you guys want to see. But the feedback is really tonight. People can reach out to us via the project website, which maybe Christine could drop in the chat for us. There's a link to my email address on there. People can email me and let me know their thoughts as well. And then the next step is once we sort of get a sense of what people want to see in the park, what's working, what's not, then we'll come back for that second meeting with some design ideas that are more concrete and specific to the park and really laid out and thought through, as opposed to just pictures and ideas of what it could be. And then we'll be able to get feedback then in a more formal way about those actual design concepts. So hopefully that helps answer that question. And then looking at the chat.
Steven had his hand up, sorry. He was trying to raise his hand, but he couldn't, so I'm gonna unmute him.
Perfect, thank you.
Hi, is it my
Yeah,
is it my turn?
Yep.
Okay, hi. This is Stephen Shore, and I'm at 26 Stillman Street. I've been in the neighborhood for 18 years. I love what I've seen on what you're looking to do with the park. And as far as I'm concerned, I think whatever you guys decide, obviously you're looking to make it beautiful, make it improve the neighborhood. And I think that it would, whatever you guys decide, I have all the faith in the world for you guys to do whatever you want. And I hate to back up and talk about the hotel project. However, I feel that it will be the demise of the park project if it gets passed through. The only question I had is as far as when you're looking to do the work on the park, is this something that you're looking to do, during the hotel project if it gets done? Is there a date in mind yet? And just, before I finish, I just wanted to make this quick. The reason why I had to bring up the, quote unquote boutique hotel, which it is not what it is planned on being. It will keep all the sunlight out of the park, and all of the beautiful pictures you just showed will be, there's no way that the park will ever look like that with a huge hotel blocking all the light. Plus, a major project like that is going to add rat holes. It's going to bring more drug traffic into Morton Street. And I just feel that if that project gets confirmed, that the $1.29 million to do the park would be a complete waste of money. I hate to say it that way. Just being honest on how I feel it's going to go down. And look, I love what you guys want to do with the park. I'm all for it. And, I know we're all here to do a job. And, I just was wondering when you were planning on starting the work and what the time frame was on that. Thanks very much for letting me speak.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. Thank you. Kevin, is it possible to jump back to the schedule slide? So this might help a little bit. So where we're at right now is, like I said, this is the very first community meeting to kick off for this. We'll have 2 more meetings this spring into early summer in order to finalize the design. Like I said, the second meeting will come back with several concepts that we show you guys about what the park could look like, get your feedback. And then the third meeting, we come back for a final design to show you guys, make sure we got it right, that we heard you, and that we're doing a lot of the things that you guys think would be great to do in the park. So what we're looking at doing once we have that finalized design in late spring is putting together our construction drawings to bid the project, which we're hoping to bid it this summer, late summer, early fall, and potentially as early as this fall's construction start, with being able to reopen the park summer of 2022. And in terms of how that coincides with the hotel project, I don't have their timeline, so I don't know. But this isn't contingent on that in any way. This is a project that is definitely going forward on its own timeline. So I hope that helps answer that question, Stephen. Looks like Brett also has a hand raised as well.
Before we let Brett, we have a couple people in the chat who had a hand that was trying to. So I'm gonna unmute Chris.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm a resident of Endicott Street around the corner, and I have 2 kids who have used the park when they were younger, and I now have a teenager and a almost teenager who would use the park, I think, more if it was a better park to be able to use. A couple of things you were asking about what it gets used for. The basketball court, it was redone a few years ago slightly, and they put new hoops in and stuff, and you did see people using it. But the drainage is terrible, and it's unusable at certain times of the year. So you don't see it get used hardly at all anymore. And my 14-year-old son, if he wants to go play basketball, doesn't even think about going there because of the condition of it. So
Okay.
I think the basketball hoop is usable, but in its current condition, it's really not. So it doesn't get used at all.
So can I ask a follow-up question on that, Chris? Sorry. When you say that it is not usable most of the year, is that because of the drainage issues, or is there something else in addition to the drainage issues that causes it to not be used?
No, it's so the trees drop a lot of junk on it, and it doesn't get cleaned up in the city. So that's certain times of the year. The drainage is a problem, and it's just upkeep, I think, is part of it as well. And then also, I think lighting is a real big problem in the park. At night, it's kind of this urban canyon that it really lends itself to drug use and problems at night. So if it were better lit, I think it wouldn't draw as much of that, and you'd be able to not go the next morning and run into needles in the park. So I think lighting is a big thing there. And the other question I have is about the budget. I think $1.3 million. I'm in the construction industry. All of the ideas I saw come up look great. I wonder if that budget is nearly enough to do what needs to get done in the park, but that's a concern that I think I have about it. So thank you for letting me talk. I'm happy you guys are looking at our little urban canyon in the North End.
I think that's a really great description. And thank you. In the budget, you're right. There is a lot that needs to be done. And one of the other things, especially being in the construction industry, you'll understand well, is that the access is challenging, which also increases cost with access. But one of the things that we'll tell you is that when we do come back for that second meeting where we are showing design concepts, all of those will have cost estimates, initial cost estimates that are done for those, so that what we're presenting is what we feel like can be done for the budget that we do have. So we'll be able to share that at our second meeting.
Sounds good.
Ryan O has his hand raised before Brett.
Hi, thank you for taking the time to acknowledge me. I'm Ryan O'Hagan. I live at 26 Stillman Street. I am also in a butter. I love the park. It's great. I bring my dog there quite a bit. It's the design that you've laid out here is beautiful. As others have said, it's a great idea, but it's just that, an idea. And I just want to state that first and foremost, this park is allocating almost 1.3 million in taxpayer money. So to say that the hotel development isn't tied to this is lunacy. If a hotel is developed on that site again, there needs to be zoning relief. It needs to go through the whole BPDA process. It's currently zoned as a one-story. That $1.3 million of taxpayer money will evaporate, given what the impacts any development on the Cross Street site will have on the park. Second, the archway, again, is more of a developer concession rather than a neighborhood recommendation. Again, it'll just create another cozy area for the persistent drug use that we've seen in that park for years. You only need to ask residents regarding drug use in that park. Again, there's very little foot traffic in that area now. Even if some development did go in there, commercial or otherwise, it would still be very small. That's the end of the greenway. So again, there's very few people on that end anyway, crossing into the north end at that point. So again, just the archway is a developer concession. And again, it's not, it does nothing in my opinion, and a few others to the park. Thank you.
And just to comment, the 1.29 million is capital investment. And so regardless of what happens with the hotel, this project has been in the budget and in the upcoming capital improvements for several years. So this has been in the works since before the hotel project, and will continue regardless. And I know that there are concerns, but I just want to make that clear that financially this isn't tied to that project and has been in the works for quite some time. Christine, are you looking at who's jumping in next?
It would be Brett.
Okay.
I'm going to unmute him now.
Thank you.
Hi, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Thank you all very much. Brett Roman, president of North End Waterfront Neighborhood Council over here. First of all, I just wanted to address that I won't be touching the subject of the hotel right now or speaking anything about the hotel. Just really generally happy, and I wish that we would focus more on the beauty of the fact that we have a chance here to update this park and improve this park, come up with work with BPDA here to see what are the needs, what can we do here to make this park beautiful. And increase foot traffic over here. I mean, this is a park that, I mean, for the past 3 years, I mean, I've gone over to Cutillo Park for Love Your Block. And I mean, every single time you go there in the spring of every year, I mean, there's just needles, it's filthy. No one ever goes there. No one has gone there. It's a park that just gets lost in the city and lost in the north end. And I mean, increasing foot traffic here and getting people to actually visit this side of the north end and walk up Salem Street. I mean, Salem Street's not as frequented as Hanover Street. So, I mean, generally there's gonna be less people going up Salem Street and walking around this area in the first place. That's just an observation that I would just make. But long story short here, talking about what the park needs or what I think that the park could use is actually not increasing greenery, because I think increasing greenery in the area, increasing bushes, trees or anything like that might actually give people more cover to do illegal behavior, which is already an issue in the park. I think kind of keeping it with the trees that are already there and making sure it's more of an open format where people can, open park where people can actually see everyone and people don't feel like they can hide and do anything discreetly in that park is very important. So I would not be an advocate of anything, adding too much greenery or adding too much hidden, well, I guess bushes or anything like that. Aside from that, I do love the idea of the one picture that we were talking about with adding like a interactive water park. I think that that's a great lead in. You're talking as we're coming in here from the Greenway. I mean, if you look at the Greenway, it's busy every single summer, every single spring, even leading into the fall. When the water is going on the Greenway, the kids love playing in the water on the Greenway. I think that anytime that kids or families see water, I think they love it. It's the focus of the attention, it steals all the spotlight. It's a great spot to get everyone there, especially in the spring and summertime. If we had like a neat interactive like water feature there, and no, not talking about the drainage issues at the park. Hopefully it would be coming from a different source here, something that's more manageable. Other than that, I think the one part that someone mentioned earlier is like having a dog area or an area for dogs. This is an issue that in the past 2 weeks, I mean, especially with the finished development of Popolo Field, one of the concerns in the area right now that we're constantly getting people complaining about is dog ownership and people letting their dogs go to the bathroom across the street, not picking them up, not taking care of themselves, not having enough space to take their dogs out for walks or for people to generally just take care of their dogs at all. So I think that having a spot on that side of the street that increases that, it kind of removes the excuses for people not to be going to a dog park in the front of the north end. There's a dog park, and this would put a dog park in the front of the north end, or at least a dog play area in the front of the north end. There's one on the other side of the north end, I believe in the front side of the front side of the north end. If you go down Richmond Street, there's like a subtle one there. I think
Kevin, do you mind going to that diagram?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So like there's another. I'm just saying that there's another like small dog walking
there's
area.
two. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there's two in the north, and there's the one on Richmond Street that you were talking about, and then there's the one at DiFilippo.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that almost like doing a similar concept to what's going on at the Gassy at DiFilippo playground, where I mean it's very open. You have the dog park up top. People can hang out, play there. It's a good open space. The difference between this park and DiFilippo is going to be that DiFilippo gets sunlight all day, every day. It's a wide open park. It's so open that I mean you get sunburned just walking out there. I mean at any point in time. I think that the beauty of this park is the fact that it does have plenty of tree cover, and I would be an advocate of more, not so much as natural light as more of nighttime, increasing lighting at night and finding good sources of light to keep people there after hours, make people feel comfortable walking by that park late at night, going and visiting the park late at night. I think that would be a huge benefit to the area. I think that one of the benefits to the tree cover of the park is it makes it cooler. A lot of people don't like the heat in the summertime, and I think that having the tree cover and not having so much natural light in the area actually does make it provides a different type of park and different style of park for everyone in the North End. I think that that's pretty much the parts that I want to focus on and that I wanted to put out there. I mean, just generally increasing the foot traffic, having an area for dogs, having the idea of the water playground, and increasing like the nighttime lighting in the area. Those are great steps towards removing the criminal activity that goes on there from time to time. I think that the general priority here should just be increasing the foot traffic in the area, making it feel like people can't do anything.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate all of those comments. Those are really helpful. I also wanted to address, there's a question in the chat about how will we design landscaping for the park, thinking through not knowing whether there's going to be an adjacent hotel in terms of the sunlight concerns. And you're absolutely right. That is something that as we look at any vegetation, and we're not saying that we are definitely putting new vegetation in, but if we do put new vegetation in, it's definitely something that we'll need to look at and consider with species selection in terms of not knowing what that is. So that's a very good point. Thank you, Dave, for putting that in the chat. Is there, I'm trying to check, I don't know, I think we've addressed everyone that was in the chat. There are a lot of comments that people put in here, so I appreciate that. And Christine, do you see any other hands raised? I want to make sure that we're getting everybody that wanted to comment. Okay. Is there anyone else?
Not at this time.
Anyone else that had any thoughts or questions or concerns that they wanted to make sure that we think about as we move into the design concepts for the park? One message. Oh, sorry, what was the question? Oh, Morton Street. Yes, thank you, Dave. There was a question about whether or not Morton Street could be absorbed into the park in terms of entering that in. And that's an interesting question. I don't think that we have thought about that at all. But it's definitely something that I can talk to others in the Parks Department and see what possibilities that is. That's typically not something that we do, seeing as the streets are a different department with transportation department, but I do think it's an interesting thought. But it's typically not something that we do, is take over streets and incorporate them into the park. Looks like Kirsten,
Yes, I'm gonna mute her now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just would like to comment on Morton Street. So, so anybody who's been in that area, Morton Street is a great little alleyway. It actually probably hasn't changed its location since it was built in the 1800s, but its location, I think, and the way in which Morton Street has been treated, particularly including the trash barrels that the city allows to be stored along Morton Street from business owners on Salem Street, has really contributed to all the bad things that have happened in Cutillo Park. So I would really encourage the Parks Department to work with the city and BPDA to, see what can happen with that end of Morton Street, because the the end of Morton Street that fronts on Endicott Street is actually used by 26 Stillman for their parking area. But the rest of Morton Street is sort of impassable. So it would be the ideal location for, you know, restaurant seating, for some sort of addition to the park. So I think that if you could work something out with other city agencies, I think that would be wonderful.
Thank you. And I agree. The use along Morton Street for the trash is definitely problematic from a parks perspective and not something that we see as advantageous at all. And it's something that Parks is looking into with other city departments in trying to figure out if we can find a solution to the problem. So it is something that we are very aware of. And like I said, it's definitely not advantageous for the park. So I do just want to make sure everybody remembers that we do have the project website that this presentation will be posted to within the next week, both the video and also a PDF of the slides, as well as the meeting minutes from the meeting. Just want to thank everybody again for your time. I know it's challenging with all of the Zoom meetings and evenings filling up, but we really appreciate your time and all of the really wonderful feedback on the project. I'm happy to stay on if there are other questions as well. And just to answer Stephen's question, the restaurant seating comment on Morton Street came from a community member. It wasn't something that has been decided or is something that the city is currently looking at. I hope that helps, Stephen. But thank you again, and we really appreciate your time tonight.